The Lost Signal Strategy, the Pretend You're Lost tactic. Welcome to my channel, Habit Compass. Okay, let's dive into this video. You know that sudden, massive spike of anxiety you get when you even just think about striking up a conversation with a complete stranger? Yeah, we've all been there. You're definitely not alone. But what if I told you there was a mechanical, almost foolproof way to completely bypass that anxiety? Well, today we're going to look at a highly structured method to conquer that conversational fear once and for all. And I promise you, it starts in a way you probably wouldn't expect.
So, listen to this incredibly provocative idea from our source material. The easiest way to start a conversation is to lie about your phone being dead. When you first hear that, it sounds kind of scandalous, right? I mean, we're usually told to be 100% authentic when we're trying to meet people. But this strategy suggests something totally counterintuitive. It argues that the absolute fastest way to rip the Band-Aid off your social anxiety is to just manufacture a tiny, harmless fiction. Why? Well, because authenticity in the very first second of a cold approach is literally impossible if your brain is in full-blown panic mode. By creating a pre-planned, tightly controlled scenario like, hey, my phone just died, you instantly give yourself a script. You're no longer scrambling for something clever or charming to say. You have a mission. And as we're going to see, this isn't about becoming some master of deception, it's simply about lowering that barrier to entry so you can actually get a word out of your mouth.
To really understand where this comes from, we got to look at the origins of the strategy. The creator roots this entire concept in a personal story from when he was an 18-year-old. Picture it. You're 18, right? You're transitioning into adulthood, you're suddenly surrounded by all these new people in totally new environments, and you are just desperately searching for a way to get over that paralyzing fear of talking to strangers. This 18-year-old realized pretty quickly that reading books about charisma or, watching naturally extroverted people wasn't actually helping at all. He needed something practical. He basically needed training wheels. The huge realization here was that the fear of starting conversations isn't actually about the conversation itself, it's about the very first moment of contact. It's the fear of rejection, the fear of being a bother. So he set out to engineer a situation where rejection was statistically highly unlikely.
And that leads us straight to the core of the strategy, the pretend you're lost tactic. The crucial thing to understand here is that this tactic is deliberately designed to be a fabricated, super low-stakes scenario. You are forcing a necessary, highly predictable interaction with a stranger. Just think about it. If you walk up to someone and say, "Hi, I think you're interesting, let's talk," the outcomes are wildly unpredictable. It's high stakes. But if you're lost, society actually has a built-in script for how to handle you. People are generally conditioned to be helpful to a lost person. So, by pretending you're lost, you are taking complete control of the variables. You know exactly what you're going to ask, and you can predict with about 95% accuracy exactly how that other person is going to respond. It takes the terrifying, chaotic nature of a cold approach and turns it into a totally predictable equation.
This brilliantly illustrates just how clinical and mechanical this process is. Our source literally describes this as a stick-figure execution plan, and I just love that imagery because it completely removes all the messy emotion from it. You aren't a nervous, sweating human anymore, you're just a stick figure running a simple program. Let's walk through the blueprint together. Step 1. You hold your phone, ideally showing a black screen or that little battery dead icon. That's your prop. It justifies the whole thing. Step 2. You approach a stranger, just another stick figure walking by, and you drop the opening line, "I'm lost, can you help?" The stranger will almost inevitably point the way. Then, step 3, and this is where the absolute magic happens. You stay for one extra sentence. "Is it a long walk?" Finally, step 4. You say thank you, walk away smiling, and log that interaction as a solid success in your brain. That's it, the whole shebang. 4 simple steps. It's so replicable you could do this 10 times a day without breaking a sweat once you get the hang of it.
Let's break down exactly why these specific components work. Starting with that opening line, "I'm lost, can you help?" Why is this so insanely effective? Well, think about it. When you stop a stranger on the street, their immediate gut reaction is usually defensive. They're thinking, okay, do they want my money? Are they trying to get me to sign a clipboard? What are they selling? But the phrase, "I'm lost," instantly drops those defenses. It triggers a deeply ingrained human instinct to assist a fellow human in distress. It frames you not as a threat or a nuisance, but as someone slightly vulnerable who just needs brief, easy-to-provide help. It is the ultimate immediate icebreaker. You aren't asking for an emotional investment or 10 minutes of their time. You're just asking for a simple data point. Which way is north? Where's the nearest coffee shop? It practically guarantees a helpful, non-rejecting response every single time.
Now, let's look at how this builds because step 3 is absolutely the secret sauce of the entire operation. Asking, is it a long walk right after they give you directions? See, if you just ask for directions and bounce, that's a purely transactional exchange. You're basically acting as a human GPS query. But when you stay for that one extra sentence, you are crossing a massive psychological boundary. Is it a long walk? Asks for their subjective opinion. It
It requires them to gauge distance based on their own personal experience. It completely shifts the dynamic from a simple data exchange to a tiny micro-conversation. You are literally proving to your nervous system that you can linger in a stranger's presence for an extra 3 seconds without the world coming to an end. This single sentence is the bridge between asking for utility and actually speaking to another human being.
And that brings us perfectly to the foundational psychology behind everything we've just talked about: low-stakes practice. This tactic is the textbook definition of engaging in small, engineered social interactions to entirely remove the pressure of a real, open-ended conversation. When you do this, it is so vital to understand that you aren't really trying to trick the stranger. The person you're actually tricking is yourself. You're tricking your brain's amygdala, your fear center. Your brain is sitting there thinking that talking to strangers is this high-stakes, life-or-death social risk. But by engineering a scenario where you know exactly what to say and you know you're going to leave after exactly 3 sentences, you're creating a completely safe environment. It allows your brain to finally realize, oh, hey, I talked to someone I didn't know and nothing bad happened. I survived.
Over time, the results of this kind of practice are just profound. Our sources highlight 3 massive long-term benefits here. First up is the transition. This simple tactic literally trains you on how to transition from silence to speaking, which, let's be honest, is usually the hardest part. Second is building muscle. Just like going to the gym, you don't start by bench pressing 300 pounds on day 1. You start with the empty bar. The pretend you're lost tactic, that is your empty bar. Every single time you walk away smiling, logging that success, you are quite literally building social muscle. And finally, deeper practice for the brain. As your brain adapts to these simple, successful little requests, all that built-up fear begins to melt away. Once your brain no longer registers approaching a stranger as a threat, you'll naturally find yourself actually wanting to stay for 2 extra sentences, then 3, gradually scaling up to deeper, authentic, organic conversations.
So, as we wrap up, I really want to leave you with this question to think about. What low-stakes interaction will you practice today to build your conversational muscle? The theory is crystal clear. The stick figure blueprint is laid out right in front of you, but that social muscle is only going to grow if you actually put in the reps. You don't have to use the dead phone excuse if you don't want to, but find your own version of an incredibly low-stakes question. Step out the door and just try it out once. Force the interaction, stay for that 1 extra sentence, and log that success. If you learned something new, subscribe to the channel for building better habits through navigating Compass, and share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear from you.